This is Popping the Bubble with hosts Sandra Ponce de Leon and Pete A. Turner.
Hey there, my name is Neil Cohen. I'm a marketing consultant here in San Francisco. I'm an advisor to a lot of startups, and I also work with a number of accelerators like Parallel 18, Startup Mexico, and Startup Chile. You are now listening to Popping the Bubble.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome, Neil. It's so good to have you here.
It's about time I finally made it on your podcast, Sandra. How long have we known each other? And finally, the invitation ends up in my inbox.
Well, I do owe you so much because you were actually the person that hired me in my first startup role ever. So I have you to thank for my long career advising startups. Or maybe I shouldn't say thank you because it's been a lot of ups and downs.
But why are you thanking me? I'm surprised you still talk to me after that. And by the way, you were fantastic in that job. You created a whole new role for that company and one of the great woulda, coulda, shouldas in startup land history. But that's another podcast.
That is another podcast. Well, I remember back then we were talking about the role of digital media and how big those budgets were going to be. And we finally have gotten to that level, beyond even surpassed.
It's funny because when we were back in 1997 and we created the first... I was
14.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it was one of those child work programs, right?
Exactly.
You were on some kind of internship from high school.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When we were talking about budgets back then in 1997, digital was still a relatively newcomer and didn't get a lot of shrift. But we were building what became the forerunner of what's now called programmatic buying and automated exchanges and that type of thing. Interesting note then is you have this in 20 years later where mobile spending in the next 2 years will exceed television spending. So that's just mobile. That's not all of digital. I'm just saying just spending on mobile devices will exceed TV advertising. And so we're in the process right now of probably the greatest transfer in spending in marketing industry history away from these legacy what have become these kind of legacy marketing tools like television, radio, and print. I mean, print has already fallen fast, but they still get an outsized portion of the eyeballs. 4% readership, but 14% of the spending, right? 4% of the audience, but 14% of the spending. So that shift will happen, continue to happen rapidly. But that's what's going on right now. And with it, a whole lot of other things changing too, because of the consumption patterns that go with it.
With TV doing as well as it is in terms of like subscriptions and that kind of thing, people want to get access to all these great shows that maybe don't have as many ads. I mean, you don't have to watch ads anymore. Are we going to go back to like a Mutual of Omaha Wild Kingdom model where someone's just a title sponsor for, Game of Thrones?
Very prescient. Everything old is new again. I mean, if you look back in the history of television marketing, before there were lots of commercials, there used to be soap operas, right? And soap operas obviously got their name because the soap companies would be trying to sell laundry detergent and dishwashing soap and all that kind of stuff.
I never knew that.
Right. And As the World Turns, brought to you by, and so obviously you're seeing more of that, but you're going to see more and more of that on free TV. And when I say free TV, stuff you watch, you pay for cable, but the stuff that comes to you over your cable box without a subscription. So when you see, for example, American Idol went away, but it's coming back, but there's a bottle of Coke in front of everything and you're in the Coca-Cola theater, you hear it on the radio, like we're in San Francisco. And so if you listen to Giants broadcast, it's always from the Hawaiian Airlines broadcast studio. And so people have figured out ways to work in brands in very, very interesting ways. Look, product placement has been around forever, but not like it's been today. For example, if you're a fan of Hawaii Five-0, and that's one of my guilty pleasures, they're always using Surface products. 100% of the time. And in a weird way too, it's like suddenly the Surface comes out for something, but it's embedded in the show. It's not just product placement, but yet there are no Microsoft ads during the show itself. So advertisers are completely understanding this idea that the control of what's being watched is in the hands of the viewers. And so they're coming up with interesting or older ways.
Yeah,
as you reinventing some of the ways that things used to be done. And Sandra's starting to laugh because I'm going to go on a rant.
I love your rants.
Well, when we shared the other day that CMO magazine research about how modern CMOs right now, like only a very small percentage are looking to change their marketing mix in the overall mix and don't have a digital strategy. Although I think there's a marketing strategy, and then what role does digital play in that? Or don't have the same view everywhere. They don't have what people call the omni-channel approach, but It's like the same vision, same view everywhere you touch the brand. And it's mind-numbing considering, again, the original thing we're talking about, which is this complete transformation of how people use media. Mm-hmm. And so we were watching TV the other night and a 30-second commercial came on and I'm literally losing my mind. The ad is horrible.
What was the ad? Do you remember?
I'm so enraged that I forgot about the ad. But my comment to Lauren, my wife, was like, somebody paid somebody to make that crap.
Right.
Somebody paid somebody to plan the media for it and place it. And then some advertiser thought that it was all well and good to spend the money to do it. And I'm sitting there going like, who still does this?
Right.
Who still does this? Because if you look at the brands that are being successful, they don't do that anymore. They don't live off the 30-second ad. And now to your listeners that are out there, and I know this is popping the bubble and where a lot of you guys are in Silicon Valley or New York or Seattle that are listening to this, but like get outside of the bubble and people are changing their viewing habits and they don't watch these commercials like they're being done, but they are sharing that 1.5 to 2 minute like movie-like content, or I hate to call it content. We can get on that rant in a second. But this kind of branded engagement, this branded entertainment that is super compelling and super interesting. And you want to share with your friends. And then you get 30 million. So you spend, instead of spending $5 million on an ad and $50 million to have it be seen everywhere, maybe you spend $1 million, $1.5 million on the ad, and then you put it on YouTube and Vimeo and Facebook and for free. And then everybody else does the work for you. And that stuff is compelling and that stuff is working.
Right. When you say that, the brand that comes to mind just naturally is Red Bull.
And Red Bull is huge. So all of your listeners right now, you're probably on a laptop, go to redbull.com.
Right.
And the first thing you'll notice when you go to redbull.com is there's no product on it.
Right. Just pure video.
It's all entertainment. It's all events, some of them created by Red Bull. It's concerts. They have their own music label, but they're completely dialed into their target audience and who they are and what they're all about. And they are an entertainment brand. GoPro is another great example, and not surprised because Paul Crandall was at Red Bull and then Paul Crandall went to GoPro. So shout out to him. But again, same thing. It's an entertainment brand, but there are other brands that are out there that see themselves as entertainment brands that when they go to market, and entertainment doesn't necessarily have to be funny. It's just that they want to give you this compelling experience that you want to live again. Right. Apple is an entertainment brand, not just because they have iTunes and, and the Apple TV and that kind of stuff, but their stores, the Apple store is theater. It's a beautiful place. It's a place you want to be, right? That's entertainment in its own way. That's an engaging way to do retail. That's, by the way, helping reinvent retail all around the world.
Yeah. What you're talking about is this brand cohesion that goes end to end from every single customer touch point and through to the customer experience.
Well, and exactly right. And if you look at best brands today, they are all based on the net experience versus any particular part of what they do. And even entertainment brands. If you look at that, let's just take the movie Guardians of the Galaxy that's out right now, and how many ways can you interact with that brand? Oh, do you have the theme park at Disney, right? Where they have the new thing down in Los Angeles or Anaheim, right? That you could go to. They've integrated with products. which happens a lot, but in kind of interesting and fun ways. If you go to the Guardians of the Galaxy website, there's lots of incredible, engaging video and stories and things to play around with. It's incredible. I'll take an even step further. I saw this the other day. I took a picture and I meant to post it. I was at the new at the AMC theaters here in the city of San Francisco. And I don't know what's going on in your neighborhood, but are they redoing, like, all around the country, all the movie theaters to have the reclining seats and the extra rows? And so they're taking out seats. Why? Because they're creating an experience. Why? Because people were staying home and binge watching. So now they have to make the movie experience more of an experience that is kind of exciting and fun. So they're giving you recliner chairs. And what did I see the other day that blew my mind is Dolby has completely built out a theater at AMC, and the whole front of the theater is like this beautiful black streamlined box, and it's like the Dolby Theater in big letters, special. So it's even more of a special experience. Like you're walking into this almost entirely new theater inside the theater. It's not the little sign Dolby inside. It's massive and beautiful. And think about it. Dolby is a technology that's inside the film, right? It just makes it sound better. And look at what they're doing with their brand and marketing.
Right.
As opposed to like putting a little button on a little tag on your device or whatever it might be that you'll never see again or whatever it is. It's like you look at them in this entirely different light. So you talk about brand experiences. We've kind of rambled from Apple to let's say Dolby in a theater, this ingredient brand, which makes things better. But that's who's doing it right. Red Bull, where they just understand their customer and creating engaging editorial or events or entertainment right from scratch. Or GoPro, which has their customers create compelling stuff.
So you talked about Apple. What about them and the rumor that they may try to buy Disney? Now you have like this ultimate entertainment provider and a massive content library.
Right. Well, and so Apple is an interesting company that has to figure out what its identity is going to be for its next quarter century. And it's been an identity in flux because it started out as a personal computer company. And with the introduction of the iPhone, it kind of became a communications company. Actually, before that, with the iPod, it became a music and entertainment company, right? So what are you? And I'm pretty sure they envision themselves as a broad entertainment platform going forward, or communication platform, entertainment and communication platform going. So what do you need to make that engine work? And if you own the entire life cycle, this is what Netflix has found out, right? If you own the creation, production, distribution, and it's really compelling and engaging, you can print money.
Yep.
So that's a good model. But Netflix unto itself is not a technology provider. They're just using everybody else's backbone. Here, Apple is also using backbone, but they've got more touch points. They're creating the touch points. They've got Apple TV. They've got the iWatch. They've got the iPad. They've got the phone. And now you're walking around. What are you going to fill it with? Well, if they can create that Netflix model and pump their own content through there, they can probably increase their margins just a bit.
Boy. that was like a rant. A long one. That was fantastic.
Yeah, but that's, I think, how a lot of companies have to look at themselves. And again, we get back to the core thing about what is marketing now. And there's a lot of misnomers about marketing. And people see marketing as just these ads and taglines and those types of things. But you really have to look at these touch points from the minute a potential customer sees who you are or learns who you are to when they become a customer, and how you engage with them from a customer relationship perspective, and what is that relationship, and what happens when that relationship ends, if it does end, or is there some kind of life cycle management? And companies still don't get it. I got into an argument with Avis Rental Car over a dent on the car, and they said, we did it, and it was this minor little thing. And I said, no, we didn't do that. That was there. Well, we don't have the thing. Well, your guy didn't do the survey. Well, we're going to charge you $2,000 for it. I said, look, I use Avis all the time. I said, if you want that $2,000, I paid with American Express, so I'll have the insurance settle that out. I said, but that's the last $2,000 you'll ever get for me. So like, let me know what you want to do. And they said, oh no, we're charging you the $2,000.
Wow. Wow. Well, not to mention now they're getting flamed on this podcast. So.
Right. Well, but the point is that don't you pull up the company history and say like, wow, this guy's, he's been around for a while and we've probably gotten about 10 grand in revenue from this guy. And maybe he's good for another 5 or 10 before he kicks the bucket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why would you exchange that, right? For the short-term gains?
What about someone like United that had a bad reputation going into last month? I mean, how do you make the decision to have all of that bad stuff happen? And then how do you recover from it? Because they already had, I don't know about you guys, but I had a negative opinion of United and basically always avoided their brand if at all possible.
Yeah. So much to unpack there.
All right. We got time.
Well, let's first of all start off with United and let's talk about brand promise. Their brand promise has always been fly the friendly skies.
Right.
Not so friendly.
Yeah, this is from a company that has mastered the art of hostile service. Okay, and so you already have this gap between performance and promise and performance. So if I'm going to do the back of a matchbook version of like if I was CMO and CEO at United, what are your strengths? What's true? What do you have that nobody else has? They've got the most routes. They go to the most places. So just by promising friendly skies, as soon as you have an unfriendly incident, not the general large quantity that they have, but it raises the hypocrisy level up. And so that's why people get so upset. It's like fly the friendly skies, like by dragging people out of the plane or bouncing minorities or telling people they can't have their kid or whatever, like all the crap that when they broke the guy's guitar a couple of years ago and he wrote the song United Breaks Guitars. Look it up. It's really, it's really great. So that's the beginning point of all the hostility for them because their brand promise that they decide to market and what the market reality is are so different. And if they were to go to market with the most routes, like, look, we've got the most routes. We go to the places you want to go. Fly us because we're going to get you where you want to go when you want to get there. I wouldn't give them such a hard time if they did a bullshit job on the service. Mm-hmm. Okay? Yeah. Pardon my...
No, I think that's fair.
Right. So that's why, I mean, look at it on a personal brand perspective. Do you think people, and by the way, I'm sad for Tiger Woods, right? Sad for him. You don't want anybody to have a tough life.
Yeah.
But the reason why people give him such a hard time is because when he was at his greatness, he had this holier than thou. I've got a foundation. I've got my family. I'm this great, good person. But behind the scenes, he's this awful, horrible, he's doing those things, but he had a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing going on. And when people find that out and that doesn't reconcile, you fall pretty far, pretty fast, pretty hard. So personal brands work the same way as corporate brands. And so a lot of stuff to unpack with United, which is wrong marketing message based on a strength that they didn't have and a performance that they couldn't meet. And they're getting their due reward for it.
Yeah. Well, I think it also kind of going back to, how we started the conversation with regards to marketers, the silos of the different departments. And you've got marketing, you've got customer service and product. And, is it time to really think about how to integrate those three pieces of the business together? And then what are the tools that marketers need to have at the ready to be able to have that unified view of the customer, to your point, so that a customer service person encountering you would know that you've spent thousands of dollars already with Avis and wouldn't treat you in that manner and would say, this guy is a great customer. We don't want to lose him. It's going to cost us more to lose him. So, how do you get to that point? What needs to happen? And I think it's different. We work a lot in the startup world. So it's different for startups that, you've got a one-person team usually versus, a company that has a lot of resources. The challenges are quite different, but they're still huge challenges for both.
And you've hit the nail on the head, which is, and even startups go wrong, right? You've Always. Done enough of them and we've all done enough of them or been associated with enough of them. And what I found is that it all starts with a unifying principle, and people don't tend to do the work, and they confuse unifying principle with mission, vision, values, and that kind of corporate talk,
right,
which really can mean something, but for and again, our listeners out there, your listeners out there, mission, vision, values. How many companies have you been at? And they've done the mission, vision, values. They spend days and days works for, is it, or is it at, or is it us, or is it we? And then, they print it out and you have a little party and the CEO talks about it. And then you get a print out the next day and you pin it up in your cube. And that's the last you ever hear of it. Right.
Exactly.
And this is not what we're talking about. When I'm talking about kind of this concept of what's your filter or who you are as an organization, and the companies that tend to do that well, once you have that filter and focus, it's easy to use that across the entire spectrum of everything that you do in your company, from marketing brand expressions to sales process to onboarding customers to customer service and customer retention and loyalty programs to new product development to look and feel and tone of the company. And so we can look at some obvious places, let's say a company like Zappos. Mm-hmm. And Zappos, like if you ask most people, they say, like their shoes and accessories, but that's not how they view themselves. They view themselves as a service company. They just happen to sell shoes and accessories. And look on the box, like what's their tagline? It doesn't say world's largest variety of shoes. It says powered by service.
No. Yeah. That's his book, Delivering Happiness.
But that's the whole idea, which is, and let's get back to the customer service perspective. So if your company is all about service, then what happens? So Lauren ordered a pair of shoes. And it wasn't, when she got them, not exactly what I want. I want this other pair. Of course, the other pair was more money. She calls up Zappos, said, I want to send the shoes back. And the woman on the phone says to her, oh, Lauren, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to send you these more expensive shoes right now. Don't do anything with the other ones. When you get the box, I'll have a return mail in it. We'll pay for the return shipping for you. So you don't even worry about that. I'll take care of it. You'll get the shoes. And my wife goes, oh, that's fantastic. She says, and by the way, we're going to pick up the $20 for you today as a thank you for being a good customer. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. A lot of things going on there. Great service, reducing the friction, creating a positive experience. That person empowered, right? Because of the corporate culture to make that decision, to give that money off right there. Okay. It still gets better.
Right.
3 days later, she got a handwritten note from that woman.
Yeah.
Talking about how happy she was to help her. Hope she loves the new shoes. And if she ever needs anything else, here's my direct line. Right. You call me.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you get that to happen? I mean, if you're not fully integrated,
right,
up and down the line with your marketing, your sales, your supply chain, all that, you can't deliver that moment.
That's a power, like a lot of the work that I've done. And you talked about the cultural things. When you design culture, that's nice, but you have to measure it. You have to go out and experience it, because the experience of the culture is real. So that person, your wife in this case, has a wonderful experience. 10 plus years ago, Zappos just sold shoes, but they also knew we're in the shoe business game, and buying shoes online is not the norm.
Right.
So let's make it easy to return these things. Let's give people confidence in the experience. Because I used to work right next door to those guys. And I would talk to them quite a bit about that. And I was like, that's how we're going to make
on Van Ness.
This was out in Vegas. But where they were out there. But the same thing, though. Like they wanted to focus on making this a safe, fun process. And they started doing those videos. Remember, they would do like, I'm going to, and there's the people there, regular people just modeling the shoes. You can get an idea. All of those things, they count, and they build to a thing that I'm really big on. They build on building affect.
Yes.
Because if you work on effect, like look how many routes we have, that's great. Everybody's pissed off when they get there, know? And if you look at affect, you'll drive effect more reliably.
I think what's notable about what they do, or any culture that's built around a particular kind of experience, is that you reward for that behavior. People will aspire or move in the direction of the money. Okay. Mm-hmm. Let's just admit it. Like if you get rewarded, for example, for taking risks at your job, you'll take risks. If you get rewarded for good service, like recognition, pay raises, spot bonuses, you'll do those behaviors, but you also have to hire and train for those behaviors and that type of thing. My other, when I look at that kind of stuff, a great example right now is Phil's Coffee. Okay. And if you talk to Jacob, who's the CEO, he says, I'm not doing 1,000 cup of coffees a day. I'm doing 1 cup of coffee 1,000 times. And so it is all about that training, because it's that one-on-one experience with a barista at Phil's. It's not an assembly line.
Right.
If you're not going to wait online, don't bother. And there's always a line. Mm. And it's a very personal experience, and you can't recreate that. You can't just happenstance recreate that. It has to be based on this notion of 1 cup 1,000 times a day and a personal, friendly experience every single time. And that's why your barista at Phil's will always say to you when they hand you the cup of coffee, 100% of the time, they'll say this: taste that, make sure it's perfect. If it isn't, I'll fix it for you. Mm-hmm. Right? Where else do you get that? Nowhere. But they reward for that. They train for that. The company's built around that. Their service delivery is built for that. The store is built for that. Everything kind of revolves around that notion. And now we can circle all the way back to the beginning, which crazy, noisy world where people are still advertising 30 seconds on TV. And yet Phil's has never bought an ad yet, period. And yet they're expanding like a weed. And when one comes to the community, there's lines down the doors. They were never in Washington, D.C. And when they open up in Washington, D.C., there's a half a mile line down the block. How does that happen? Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's that investment, that upfront investment in the experience, and really, I think, treating your customers like people and creating those relationships with your customers, true, authentic relationships. I think it just seems like a real shift is happening in terms of what companies need to do and how they should approach marketing, and having that all of these touch points integrated. Like, what does a company that's not set up to function that way, how do they make the shift?
Well, and that's what we're talking about, which is if typically companies that aren't set up that way don't have that filter. The departments are super siloed,
right? And
they're all being rewarded for something different. Typically, the compensation packages for sales is based on one thing. Compensation package for marketing is based on another, which is ridiculous because they should both be sharing the same compensation goals.
True.
The CEO has some vision. The president is off executing something else, and there is no kind of unifying principle behind what everybody's doing. And that is typical, not atypical, sadly. Again, this survey that we looked at, it was almost 70%, of the CMO said that they didn't have the same face across all.
Exactly.
Right? So, yeah, right. And so there has to be a political will to say that we're going to unify this, but it has to come from the top, and you have to orchestrate it by just understanding what it is, the truth that who you are, what is your strength in the marketplace, not a bunch of BS. Like I said, United, like friendly skies, BS. Most routes? Yeah, that's true. Okay, let's live off of our strengths that we can defend and support and probably beat people with. Like, you can beat people with most routes, right?
So kind of cool if they were nice to people too.
Well, you know what?
Is that too much to ask?
You can be nice, but marketing it doesn't seem to be working for them. Well, look at the opposite. Look at Virgin America, right? Virgin America, their filter is fun in the sky. So if you're fun in the sky, you actually hire people who are enjoying what they're doing, and they're actually fun in the sky, right? And the airplanes are purple, and there's house music when you walk on, so you can kind of bop on the airplane, and nice entertainment system, right? So again, we didn't need another airline. However, flying wasn't fun, so they found a place. Mm-hmm. Now they got bought by Alaska. We'll see what happens. Mm-hmm. But this gets back to how do companies do that? It really has to start at the top and finding that thing, but then building, going out to the silos and saying, look, this is what we're going to incent and reward. And this is, yes, we're growth, but it has to be growth against this, which sometimes you have to do is get rid of people who don't. A lot of people will change and a lot of people won't. And you know what? The organism has to get rid of the things that aren't working, right? Mm-hmm. It's funny. It's why a lot of companies don't innovate well. Large companies don't innovate well because the company has antibodies to it, right? Because they don't reward innovation. I got to make my numbers. I can't work on that project. I get rewarded on hitting a 15% growth. I don't get rewarded on coming up with a new widget or, coming up with process change. Mm-hmm. So until you start rewarding the things you want to happen, they don't happen.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed that companies, and they still do this, they do the automatic email thing with the do not reply email address. So you sent me a message that I didn't ask for. And then if I wanted to engage and say, hey, tell me more about this, you've basically sent me a fuck you message in your solicitation.
Right.
So, why do companies do that? I mean, we absolutely have the technology now to at least have a robot say, hey, thanks for sending that email back. Let me get you routed over to Bob. You know? And even Bob could be a robot, and then you wait for the ball to get hit back to you and finally you can get to a human. But they all miss this opportunity when they use this tool so ineffectively with the do not reply address.
Well, and I think that's an example of kind of a more macro problem, which is there's so much ad tech out there now solving so many problems. And this also gets back to the CMO, who is not the traditional CMO anymore. The CMO is probably the biggest technology buyer in most enterprises. Yeah. Even in some cases more than the IT manager, right? Because once you set up your infrastructure, you have infrastructure and maybe you have people managing it, right? But in buying new IT, especially for large enterprises, the CMO is, so here you're talking about some type of marketing automation, which may or may not be doing the trick. Is it the right idea? Is it the right for your brand?
Right.
So that particular company, why are they sending out do not reply emails? What's the point of the email in the first place? How does that integrate with everything else that you're doing? This study that Sandra and I were talking about earlier from CMO magazine, was a lot about technology used by CMOs and what they are and they aren't doing. And the challenge is that there's so much out there and so much going on and so much in flux. A lot of them are just throwing up their hands and saying something, I'm not going to do something until I see somebody else do something that works, and then I'll fast follow. And so sometimes you have people out there who are kind of bleeding edge and they're trying all kinds of different things to see if it can work or not work, or trying something new or different. And you might be getting some of those experiments. Yeah. But if CMOs, look, they get every day, they get 5 emails about some new software that's going to increase their sales, improve their leads,
optimize the sales cycle,
optimize their cycle, improve their brand knowledge,
give deeper attribution.
Right. And it's like, Jesus Christ, I'm past the center of the earth already. How much deeper can I get? And I actually think that in some cases we're suffering from data overload as opposed to, or too much of the wrong data.
I think that, there's just so much technology out there. And then the integration points, and the article also talked about how most CMOs are really not leveraging the true power of these systems they have in place. Right. They're just not even a fraction of it. And then they want, to retool the whole marketing stack so it's all communicating with each other.
Right. And not everything that's measurable is important. Not everything that's important is measurable.
Right. That's
what the problem is. You're measuring so many things now. And it's like, but what should we be measuring? Mm-hmm. And we've got 5 million data streams, and sure, there's machine learning and they can take all that in, and there's AI and they can help figure things out. And that's what programmatic's doing for us. However, as a CMO or as a marketing leader, what's the right data? Mm-hmm. Because all this ad tech, it can show you trends and things in the real time in the past, and people say predictive, but it still is up to me to connect the dots on where things are going. Nobody told Apple that they had to make the iPod or the iPhone, but they saw where the market was going and they put things together. The customer will never tell you, if you're selling a compass, right? And you had the world's greatest compass company and you went to your customers 30 years ago and you said, how can I make that compass better? They say make it a little more accurate. Add some bevels on it so it's a little more precise, and maybe backlight it or put some phosphorescence in it. So if I'm at night, I get holed up at night, I can look at it. The customer would have said, what you should do? Send 27 asynchronous satellites into orbit around the globe, and then give me a little computer handheld device that shows me my exact longitude and latitude, and also will give me a path back to where my camp is or my car or wherever it is, no matter what time. A customer can't tell you that, right? But you can put things together where you could say, in the case of the iPod and digital music, is okay, we're all carrying around Walkmans right now. Well, what would be great is if it didn't skip. It would skip less, right? They had anti-skip technology. Okay, if this only could skip every 2 minutes instead of every 30 seconds, that would be great. And you know what? I'm only taking 2 CDs with me everywhere, 3 CDs. I'm limited my music. Boy, it would be great if I could carry 5 or 6. Like, give me a bigger CD pouch, right? Or something I could, right? So I can, like, these are the things that people would think about, right? Nobody said, like, why don't we just put it all on a flash drive in your pocket and you can have 1,000 songs based on the storage capacity. Customer can't tell you that. Mm-hmm. And by the way, they're willing to sacrifice some sonic quality, right? The fidelity, a little bit of fidelity, MP3s, right? Versus a CD. But I'm not getting skips and it's more portable. And so everything changes. But that's how all the data in the world can't give you that. And that's why CMOs need to be looking at the right data, not all the data.
So what are your predictions for the future? We've got a lot of new technologies coming up. I just gotten some preview of some really cool VR technology. How is VR going to impact our media consumption, and how is that going to impact the ad world?
VR, at least for the short term. So I'm saying short term is going to still be in the realm of the gamer. Mm-hmm. And maybe some gee-whizzy kind of stuff. Like, remember the early day of apps? And you'd have an app that was like, it was like a beer glass, and you would like drink the beer glass, and like that was it in your app, right? Like it was a picture of,
or the lighter,
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that's where virtual reality is right now. It's just like kind of gimmicky. It's an exploratory phase. You'll have some advertiser use it, but it's all experimental right now. And a lot of the VR, AR stuff is more what I would call event experience type stuff, like on-premise stuff versus an ad you'll see on your laptop or your mobile or on TV or something like that, right? So I think you're a few years away from seeing that happen. But I think some of the markets that will adapt it more quickly, I think to me are obvious, but like travel, for example. Mm-hmm. Destinations and hotel companies. Let's check out the room. Let's check out the view. When I think you're seeing real estate, right? You're seeing a little bit of it in real estate right now. You get these 360, 3D versions, and I think that's going to improve. So I think where spatial relationships are really important to the product, you're going to see more of that. You might see it in the amusement park realm, right? Like when I experience Space Mountain, actually I don't have Space Mountain anymore. It's a Star Wars ride, right? Shows how old I am. And I even remember e-tickets. And everybody's going like, what's an e-ticket? I think that you'll see that type of a thing, and those will be the early adopters because that's where you'll get the biggest bang for the buck, and then it'll get more subtle going forward. I think the biggest change in marketing as well as product that you're going to see is voice. Mm-hmm. And you've already seen that kind of starting taking over, but voice is the new touch.
Right.
I think that's going to just accelerate as the voice recognition continues to learn. And I think your audience out there, it's like if you've got an Echo or a Dot or the Google Voice or any of these other things, Siri, that the more you use it, the better it gets. And so I think it was like 6 or 7 years ago, a very, very low percentage of Google searches on mobile devices were voice activated. And now it's over 25%. Mm-hmm. That's just like from nowhere, right? Mm-hmm. That you're talking thousands and thousands % increase. So
how does a marketer interject themselves into a voice interface? I mean, is it
right?
You're going to be ordering something on Alexa and then, you just ordered Domino's and here's
you're nailing it, but it's how do you do those integrations and how do you put those tasks in learning? And so what's great, so why does Amazon have the lead right now? Because they followed Apple's model and they said, you want to know why iPhone held on so long, so hard and still does? Because they built the first app ecosystem, and that's people want to go first. And by the way, even against Android, more app users on Apple. So they saw that, like, let's do that. So they went out and lots of third-party developers, lots of open APIs, right, to come in and how do you connect into this system and by the way, have it interact. So how does your car and your home and you and your mobile device all sync up through this little voice device? I mean, it's kind of brilliant. 2 years ago, I think there was like under maybe 15 to 25 tasks you could do on an Amazon. When you say Alexa, mostly it was music related. Now you have thousands.
Right.
The
skills.
And some of them are pretty good, right? From pizza ordering to turn on my lights to, whatever it might be. So I think you're going to see, so if you're a smart marketer, what are the voice applications that make sense for your product, even if you're Coca-Cola, because there probably is one. And if I were Coke and I understood my brand like they do, like putting names on bottles and brilliant stuff like that, creating an experience out of a bottle of Coke, right? Or Coke Freestyle where you can mix your flavors. So they get their brand. There's some there, they'll figure it out. But other people are certainly doing it right now. Like you said, like Domino's is exactly right. Yep. Yeah. And so lots more to follow. And I think that's going to be a big area. I think the last one, and we just did it today, so I'll bring it up. And I think you're going to see cord cutting dramatically
you just
accelerate. Cut the cord today.
Wow.
Good for you.
Yes. Yeah.
So we're not going to miss it.
Oh, of course not. No, of course we're not. But the thing is that the cord cutting products have caught up with the demand or desire. So I'm a sports person, right? I have to watch live sports. I won't watch videotape sports or DVR sports. And I needed my Giants, right? And so I needed CSN Bay Area, what's now NBC Sports Bay Area, right? So now one of them has it. One of the providers has it with everything else that I want. And it's easy. Yeah. And we're going to save $1,000 a year.
Which one are you on?
We're experimenting with Sling TV and the PlayStation product, but it looks like we're going to go with the Sling, even though the UI is a little sloppy, but I don't care. If I can find what I'm looking for. I only watch two things.
I highly recommend the MLB.com app as well.
I have that app. Yeah.
It's not great when they're home and they're broadcast elsewhere, but you can replace that too.
Love them. Yeah. Love it. But now I'm happy. And like I said, we're saving $1,000 a year.
That's like $150 for the whole year or something like that for TV, whenever, with your team. It's a great product.
No, but this is great. But so I think you're going to see a lot more cord cutting. It's been happening, but that's going to accelerate. And then again, that gets back to why is mobile spending going to outpace TV very soon? I think the final thing after cord cutting, because it's like, you're going to cut that cord. So what are people going to? So it's shorter, more engaging content, or it still is the new normal is all your stuff when you want it, where you want it on the device of your choice. That's it, right?
Exactly.
So that's the new normal. But if that's the new normal going forward, then what I'll leave you with is the most important thing that people are going to have to market to going forward, which is context. And context is everything. So because we're now mobile, wherever we want to be, whenever we want to be with the device of our choice, that's place, that space, that environment, where you are, what you're doing, the time of day, what you last search, what you're going to, right? Because your phone knows, your phone tells you all the time. It's like, oh, you've got an appointment, so-and-so, traffic is so-and-so.
Right.
Maybe take this. I mean, it's telling me all this stuff. It's already context sensitive. Right. So now marketers are going to start tapping. The mobile advertising is terrible right now.
It is.
Okay. But when they start tapping into that context, it's lunchtime, I'm downtown.
Being proactive.
Yeah.
It's the proactive
somebody
messages.
should be telling me where I should be eating, right? And they should know that I like carnitas. Right? Because I had it 6 times, or I ordered it through Caviar.
You haven't had carnitas in 3 hours.
Yeah, right. Yes, exactly. But it's exactly right. It knows because I'm ordering, I'm doing things on my phone.
And there's a taco restaurant,
taco
a block
place,
away.
Right? It knows I search for new hamburger joints all the time. Hey, Neil, there's a new hamburger joint around the corner. It knows this. Okay. Right. And we want that help. Okay. We love that help. That's the non-creepy side of the internet. That's thank you for knowing me. I want you to know that about me because that's the kind of places I want to look. Yeah. Okay. So context is, to me, now and going forward, more important than anything else. It's what you are, your preferences, place, time of day, situation. For example, if I'm in Soma at noon on a Tuesday, right, is different than I'm on Soma at 10 p.m. on a Friday.
And if the Giants are in town.
But
Right.
Game
a
changer.
marketer should,
Sure.
marketers should be marketing to that, because I'm probably looking for a drink on actually, depending on what I'm doing, I might be looking for a drink on Tuesday afternoon, right? At noon. And that's where it's going to start really, truly, when people start thinking about that old holy grail, they thought digital was going to be the holy grail and all that kind of stuff. But when you can have that kind of context and really tap into people's likes and wants, where they are, when they are, you'll win more than you'll lose. And this is not the Minority Report stuff where you walk in the store and it tells you like, "Hi, Sandra, would you like to look at those slacks that you looked at online earlier today?" I mean, that's the creepy side of the internet, right?
Right.
Although Nike is starting to do a little bit of that. Like, so if you download the Nike app, the Nike Plus, and they're redesigning their stores that when you go in and if the app's on, it'll know all your recent purchases and it'll steer you towards your likes, like your preferences based on Nike Plus. So like, oh, Neil, you like soccer? Great. We've got these new boots. We got these new jerseys going up to the 4th floor.
Right. Well, the creepy factor is really just depending on who you are. And I think a lot of it generational also, because I know millennials are used to giving a lot more information out, and even the younger generations. And that's what they expect. They expect that contextual marketing. They don't want to get irrelevant products marketed to them. So
yeah, that's not an intrusion. That's improving my day. It's like, yes. Want me to make that reservation for you at the taco place? Boom. It's right there for me, and it's frictionless.
Right.
So context, that's what I'll leave you with.
Context is everything.
Love it.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, Neil. Always a pleasure to see you and get to your wisdom and insights. I always learn so much.
Well, it was fun being here. You guys are great. A lot of fun.
Thank you.
Here on Popping the Bubble.
Yes.